Good morning. Welcome to News on the Hour. This is your one-stop show for all that matters from the field of politics, business, sports, entertainment. We are also taking a big look on India's fight against COVID-19 and the vaccination drive that's picking up pace across the country. Well, we cut all the noise, bring you news as it happens on ground zero, and we've got a power-packed morning here for the next 60 minutes. Let's get started with the top stories at the top of this hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to hold a meeting with vaccine manufacturers today. This would be his third interaction with focus groups after doctors and pharma companies on Monday. Government announced liberalized and accelerated third phase vaccination strategy. 18 years of age and about to receive COVID-19 vaccine from the 1st of May. Meeting chaired by Prime Minister also decides to incentivize vaccine production as well as attract new players. COVID cases continue to rise in the country. Delhi goes into a week-long lockdown. Kerala announces night curfew starting today. BJP to restrict large rallies in West Bengal amid COVID spike. Vaccination drive continues at high momentum. Over 12 crore 71 lakh vaccine doses administered so far. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar speaks to his American counterpart Anthony Blinken. Leaders discuss regional security issues, global issues including climate change and cooperation in health sector. In international news, United States open up free vaccination for all above 16 years of age from today. President Joe Biden urges all Americans to get vaccinated at the earliest. And in sports, amid disturbance in the football world following announcement of Super League, UEFA approves new format for club competitions, new format to be applicable from the 2024-25 season. Well, headlines at the top of this hour on News on the Hour. Now let's get started with the stories in detail, starting first up with Prime Minister, who's scheduled to hold a meeting today with vaccine manufacturers via video conferencing. This would be his third interaction with focus groups after doctors and pharma companies on Monday. Meanwhile, according to the Indian Council of Medical Research, that's ICMR, as many as 26 crore 94 lakh 14,035 COVID-19 tests being conducted in the country to date. On a single day, 15 lakh 19,486 samples being tested on the 19th of April. That's Monday gone by. Well, to get us more on that particular story, Arun Sharma joining us on the phone line this morning. Arun, clearly the Prime Minister, very much there in top gear, especially when it comes to meeting the industry leaders, meeting the pharma world today again, setting up another meeting. What exactly is the Prime Minister here, trying to achieve in this fight against COVID-19 and vaccination in India?
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaving no stone unturned as far as fight against COVID-19 is concerned. Earlier also, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met the doctors, the pharmaceutical companies, and today Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be interacting with the vaccine manufacturers. Now, the litmus test, or you may say that the true pressure will be on the manufacturer, the vaccine manufacturers of our country. We know this fact that from 1st of May, the vaccines will be available for all the people who are above the age of 18 years. That means more and more availability has to be ensured as far as vaccines are concerned, be it Serum Institute or be it the Bharat Biotech. The true pressure will be on, increasing the capacities as far as vaccine manufacturing is concerned. Recently, we know this fact that yesterday only Finance Ministry has released 4,500 crore rupees to these as an advance payment for these two vaccine manufacturers, which includes 3,000 crore rupees to Serum Institute of India and rest 1,500 crore rupees to Bharat Biotech, so that they can ramp up their capacities, they can ramp up the manufacturing capacities as far as the vaccines are concerned. So today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be interacting with the vaccine manufacturers of our country, try to understand that what are the challenges in ramping up the capacities. That's number one. And if in case from 1st of May, we know this fact that the vaccines are now will be available to all people above the age of 18 years. It will also be available in the market. So now, what is the main challenge in meeting such great demand, which will be coming from 1st of May. And in that context, only today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's meeting with the vaccine manufacturer is going to be very much significant. We also know this fact that Dr. Reddy's, the Sputnik V, will also be in the pipeline very soon. And so we can understand the fact that Bharat Biotech, Serum Institute's vaccine, and of course very soon the Dr. Reddy's Sputnik V. All these three vaccine manufacturers will be ramping up the capacity so that the demand can be met as far as the vaccines are concerned. So in that context, it's going to be a significant meeting.
Arun, also considering, since you mentioned Sputnik V there, representatives from these three companies, but are we also expecting representatives from the top drug makers from abroad, including those companies that have been given approval for their vaccines to be rolled out in India soon?
Well, absolutely, because we know this fact that various global collaborations have taken place as far as vaccine manufacturing is concerned. There are certain vaccine manufacturers which are into various phases as far as trials are concerned. But we know this fact that from 1st of May, the real pressure will be on these companies like Serum Institute, Bharat Biotech, and of course Dr. Reddy's, the Sputnik V for that matter, because they'll now have to ramp up their capacities. The immediate challenge for the government is to ensure that no states primarily, there is no deficit of vaccine in any of the states. And in that context only, if in case the center wants to ensure that all the states can be provided with proper and sufficient amount of vaccine. So in that context, it is very much important to, to ensure and to understand the challenges that these vaccine manufacturers are facing. And that's the reason why yesterday only Finance Minister...
Yes, go on, Arun. Go on, Arun.
Yes. That's what I was saying, Anil, that in that context only it is going to be very much important, because yesterday only Finance Ministry has released 4,500 crore rupees of advance payment to Serum Institute and of course Bharat Biotech. So now these two companies primarily will be ramping up their capacities and will try to ensure that how can rising demand can be met, how can equitable distribution be done, in various states. That means in a states where the caseload is very much high, how can vaccines can be ensured that they can reach there at a priority basis. Wherever demand is there, how can that be ensured? And in certain states where demand is less, how can equitable distribution can be done so that the vaccines are not wasted, number one. Number two, wherever or whichever state requires the vaccine, that should be provided it with first hand. Last but not the least, Anil, what government is ensuring that if in case there is any kind of challenges that these manufacturing companies are facing, how can that be addressed? Financial problem is something that was addressed by the Finance Ministry yesterday itself, and 4,500 crore rupees have been released to Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech. But now the real challenge and tough pressure will be on these vaccine manufacturing companies, because from 1st of May, that means in next 10 days only, entire nation or you can say that anybody who is above the age of 18 years will be eligible to get vaccinated. So in that context, to create or to meet such demand will be challenging, and how can this pressure be handled as far as the manufacturing capacities are concerned? That will be discussed on a top priority as far as this meeting is concerned.
Also spell out for our viewers, the center has given an approval now for the states to buy COVID vaccines directly from the manufacturers. What does this mean purely when in terms of, will the manufacturer here declare the prices in advance? How can states go about doing this? Will that be also deliberated today when the Prime Minister meets, the companies that are dealing with vaccine manufacturing?
Absolutely. This is going to be, again, on the top agenda as far as this meeting is concerned. See, Anil, the idea behind this meeting is that how can vaccines reach each and everyone who is above the age of 18 years. That's number one. There were certain states who were saying that there is a scarcity of vaccine, there is a deficit as far as vaccines are concerned. So in that context, how can the states directly procure vaccines from the vaccine manufacturers? That's number two. And last but not the least, the third important point is that the entire idea behind this exercise is that states can directly procure from the vaccine manufacturer so that it reaches well on time, because vaccination is an important subset in fight against COVID-19 is concerned. Because yes, on one side, government is ensuring that there should be proper healthcare infrastructure, be it oxygen cylinders, be it vaccines like remdesivir. These kind of vaccines and health infrastructure can be provided to all the states. There should not be any kind of deficit as far as these health infrastructure is concerned. But another aspect of getting rid of COVID-19 or to flatten the curve of COVID-19, it is very much important that the vaccination drive also increases. We know this fact that if in case we have to vaccinate close to 80 crore, 90 crore people, this requires a massive exercise. And it is very much important that the states directly starts procuring from the vaccine manufacturer. As of now, 2 to 3 vaccine manufacturers are in pipeline. That means Serum Institute, which is the largest primarily manufacturer for our country, and of course Bharat Biotech, and of course Sputnik V is also rolling out its vaccine as far as in collaboration with Dr. Reddy's. So now the idea is that how can states directly procure from the vaccine manufacturers, number one. Number two, the financial aspect, because to ramping up the vaccine manufacturer in our country, it is very much important that there should not be any kind of financial constraint, because even these vaccine manufacturers of our country, they are under immense pressure as far as finances are concerned. So how can government ensure that the advance payments can be given to these vaccine manufacturers of our country so that they can ramp up their capacities and they can ramp up the vaccine manufacturer of our country? So yes, all these things will be very much dominate this meeting, because Prime Minister Narendra Modi will ensure one thing, that how can vaccination drive can be increased and given a major push on another side, so that the important subset of vaccination, that can be achieved, and with that only the curve can be flattened as far as COVID-19 is concerned.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Arun, thank you and appreciate you joining us. You've got a busy day ahead. We'll come back to you for more updates on that particular story. Well, staying with COVID and the fight against COVID-19, well, let's now take a look at COVID-19 update from across the country. As per the Union Health Ministry, 2,59,170 new cases being reported on Monday. 1,54,761 recoveries recorded in the last 24 hours. That takes the cumulative total of recovered patients in India to 1,31,08,582. With this, the recovery rate in India currently stands at 85.56%. India's total active caseload stands at 31,977 patients. The country's present active caseload consists of 13.26% of the total positive cases, and the fatality rate in India currently stands at 1.18%. Well, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh spoke to Army Chief General Naravane, Defence Secretary and DRDO Chief, and asked them to offer available facilities and expertise to civilians during the COVID-19 crisis. He also directed the Army Chief that local commanders must reach out to CMs and offer all possible help. Following it, Defence Secretary also issued instructions at the 67 Can Board hospitals across India, advising them to ensure medical services to all patients, both Kant residents as well as non-residents. Well, for more on that story, we've got Nandita Daga, correspondent, joining us on the phone line. Nandita, clearly, the Army too stepping in here in this time of crisis, trying to bail out or trying to extend every possible help to the civilians and, a step in the right directions, especially considering, the grim situation that, most of the states are facing at this point of time.
Absolutely, Anil. What has happened is that just as the former Army Chief General VP Malik had tweeted yesterday that we have lost more Indians in one day than we lost to the entire Kargil war. So this is India at war with a virus. India is at war with a pandemic that has been clearly, we know where it originated from. So this is a full-blown war, not just on India, but the entire globe. And the government has now ensured a war footing, and it is only natural that the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, our state-run public sector undertakings such as Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, etc., step up to the plate. Because, yesterday the DRDO set up that hospital became operational yesterday amidst the spike that we witnessed in Delhi, the 30% positivity rate, and it began operational yesterday. And now the defense minister has asked the top army officer in each state, whether it be it in the commands or the local formations, to approach the chief ministers of those states and ask what help they require. He's also directed the defense secretary, Mr. Ajay Kumar, as well as he's spoken to Army Chief General Naravane yesterday and asked that the cantonment hospitals. Now, there are about 63 cantonments in the country, Anil, and they have 63 military hospitals, cantonment hospitals, and they will be opened for the civilian public. Now, this is what he's directed the Army Chief and the Defense Secretary. Although these hospitals are for the civilian, for the armed forces personnel, the retired armed forces personnel, their kin. But now, considering that the health infrastructure of the country is overstretched, not just the capital but the entire country, therefore some beds will be open and the civilians also will be able to get treated over there.
Okay, Nandita, considering that there is a 500-bed COVID hospital that's been, facility that's been created in Delhi, is there a similar move by the DRDO to, create these kind of, makeshift hospitals, especially in states that are more vulnerable or states that are facing a grim situation?
Yes, Anil, the DRDO and not just the DRDO, there are other public sector undertakings, such as Hindustan Aeronautics Limited or HAL. It is in the process of setting up a 1,000-bed hospital in UP, in Uttar Pradesh. Also, there is talk of these kind of hospitals being built in Maharashtra, Karnataka and Gujarat as well, also Bihar. But the problem that these public sector undertakings and this enterprise is facing is that there is a shortage, at a very quick pace you have to acquire land for these makeshift facilities, and then you have to arrange for manpower, and also money. For example, money may not be that much of a concern, because for emergency funds can be released on these occasions, but you have to acquire land in a day or two, acquire infrastructure, acquire manpower. After all, these DRDO, HAL, ordnance factories, etc., they are not actually medical enterprises. They are not doctors. They are actually in the business of making hardware and equipment for military. But still, since they have manpower, they have infrastructure, they have reach in several cities of the country, such as Nashik. HAL has a plant there. In Lucknow, HAL has facilities there. So that is the reason they are stepping up to the plate. So the nation is at war, Anil, and we should not take it lightly. In fact, the former Northern Army Commander, Lieutenant General D.S. Huda, has tweeted that the nation, this is a full-blown crisis, and that is why the armed forces also has to step in and help the civilian brethren.
Okay, we'll leave it there. The Defense Ministry, they're purely gearing up in top gear there to fight this COVID-19, and there is a coordination that's been built between the states and the defense organizations when it comes to taking this battle head on. Thank you and appreciate you joining us, Nandita, with those updates there in the fight against COVID-19. Well, moving on, in a decision that will add more power and direction to India's fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, the NDA government has decided to expand the ambit of vaccination considerably. In a meeting chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, an important decision of allowing vaccination to everyone above the age of 18 from the 1st of May has been taken. India's approach has been built on scientific and epidemiological pillars. India has been following a dynamic mapping model based on availability of vaccines and coverage of vulnerable priority groups to take decisions to when to open up vaccinations to other age groups. So far, the nation has seen two phases of the national COVID-19 vaccination strategy. Well, Karnataka government has called an all-party meeting today, and the governor and chief minister are expected to attend the meeting virtually. State Chief Minister is undergoing treatment for COVID-19 at a private hospital. A final decision with regards to the stringent measures are expected today. Earlier, the Chief Minister of the state, B.S. Yedurappa, held a crucial meeting with all the elected representatives of the state and gathered suggestions to draft a strategy to stop the spread of COVID-19 in the southern state. On Monday, Karnataka reported new cases, 15,785 new cases, and Bangalore urban has the highest caseload with 9,618, taking the total toll of fresh cases in the southern state to 11,76,850. Well, for more on that story, we are heading down south, where we've got our correspondent Aisha Khanam joining us to give us the latest, especially when it comes to this particular meeting. Aisha, looking at the way things stand, the picture was grim yesterday. Is the picture turning, a bit on the positive side?
Well, Anil, the government is making its best efforts to see the picture turns better, and also making all the efforts to bring the situation under control. But the the positive rainbow that we can see here is that there is no lockdown. The government has decided yesterday, after a meeting with the elected representatives, that there will be no lockdown in Karnataka as such. So this is one big relief to the people in the state, especially the poorer section of the society who are dependent on the daily wage. So there will be no lockdown. This is one. And the second thing is that today the government has called an all-party meeting, and it will be discussed at the all-party meeting about the decision, this decision not to enforce a lockdown, because the government does not want to invite any criticism from the opposition as such. So the opposition leaders will also attend this meeting today, and the governor will also be a part of this virtual meeting, when the government will finally announce a new set of guidelines to restrict the movement of people, especially in Bangalore. There will be a separate set of guidelines for Bangalore as such, because Bangalore is highly affected, and we are seeing over 10,000 cases per day in Bangalore city alone, and there is shortage of beds, there is shortage of oxygen supply. So there will be separate set of guidelines for Bangalore, and then for other districts. The other districts are also infected, because, are also highly affected because of the bordering, because they share borders with Maharashtra, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, where the cases are also increasing. So there could be a decision on imposing restrictions across the borders and borders with the other states. And also, the government is now trying to facilitate the supply of oxygen to all the hospitals, especially the small nursing homes who are not able to store the oxygen facility, who do not have an oxygen storage facility. So the government is trying to work out a strategy and work out easy logistics so that the oxygen supply reaches the nursing homes, whereas the bigger hospitals are much equipped to store oxygen. But the fact is that the beds, and the government is now grappling with the situation to create more beds in the private hospitals, to create more COVID care centers with oxygen and ICU facilities. And as I said yesterday also, the government is trying to convert the star hotels into makeshift hospitals, which has not yet been done, though they have been talking about it from past 3 days. But still the infrastructure is not in place. The government has clearly said that the situation is grim. The Health Minister of Karnataka, Dr. Sudhakar, has openly acknowledged the fact that we are seeing a very alarming situation, but there is no need to panic. He says the government will take stock of this situation and review today, and the guidelines on movement of people will be very strict, so that they could break the chain. And as I said, the lockdown is not a solution. The government thinks to bring down the numbers, whereas ramping up the medical infrastructure is the only way and hope further
Okay.
to contain the spread of infection.
Okay, we'll leave it there. So Karnataka government clearly spelling it out, no lockdown in place, but they are likely to announce strict measures that are going to come in place from today. We'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us, Aisha, this morning, and also take good care of yourself. Well, staying with this particular story, but looking at the supply of oxygen requirements across the length and breadth of the country, oxygen requirements of Maharashtra will soon be met as the first oxygen express carrying 7 empty tankers left from near Mumbai on Monday night for Visakhapatnam. According to railways, the Ro-Ro or roll-on, roll-off train will be loaded with liquid medical oxygen at the Visakhapatnam steel plant and will be brought to Maharashtra. Tankers are expected to return in 4 days with 100 metric tons of liquid oxygen. The Central Railway's Mumbai division built a ramp within 24 hours at the Kalamboli goods yard to facilitate loading and unloading of tankers in land from flat wagons. On Sunday, the railways had announced it will run Oxygen Express over the next few days to transport liquid medical oxygen and oxygen cylinders across the country. Under the initiative, empty tankers will be loaded with liquid medical oxygen from Visakhapatnam, Jamshedpur, Rourkela and Bokaro for the supply across the country. Meanwhile, Ministry of Railways has clarified that Indian Railways is running its passenger trains normally. Keeping in view the pandemic situation, passengers are requested to avoid any panic or speculation and come to station only if they have confirmed or RAC ticket. It added that all social distancing norms be followed and there is no reason for anyone to panic and speculate. Well, according to the latest data from Maharashtra, 58,924 new cases being registered on Monday. 52,412 patients were discharged, while 351 patients died in the last 24 hours. Currently, 37,43,968 people are in home quarantine, while 27,081 people are in institutional quarantine. As of today, there are 6,76,520 active cases in Maharashtra. Well, we got Shama, our correspondent, standing by to give us the latest on the situation in Maharashtra. Shama, looking at the way things stand, there is a drop in numbers when you look at the overall picture. But is the state now, ready to fight? Especially considering the grim situation that the western state is in?
Maharashtra state is already fighting its battle, and this is after the first week of February, and only after March, beginning March mid, we did start seeing that all the medical facilities started getting exhausted, and we have also started building our own makeshift hospitals and acquiring other areas like the auditoriums or the halls. And lately we've seen, you've also mentioned about how the oxygen, oxygen need has been fulfilled of Maharashtra, and it is in process. Like we saw yesterday, one Ro-Ro Express, Oxygen Express of the railways has already left for Visakhapatnam, and 7 such tankers of having the capacity of 16 metric ton oxygen, liquid medical oxygen would be coming back, and such 7 tankers would be coming back, and then the oxygen would be distributed to different places in Maharashtra.
Okay.
Also, Maharashtra had earlier requested, the Chief Minister had earlier requested that other states who can help Maharashtra should also come forward, and we did see yesterday that from the Bhilai steel plant, already several tankers of 16 metric ton of liquid medical oxygen has already reached Nagpur. So a lot of other plants are also helping, coming forward to help the current situation in Maharashtra. You spoke about numbers. If this number continues to go down, only then we can talk about how the numbers have come under control, how the lockdown has started having its effect. But for now, we'll have to attribute it to lower number of tests that may have happened in the last 2 to 3 days. But here, I really don't want to jinx the numbers of Mumbai that is coming. We did speak about the numbers yesterday and day before yesterday that it had come to the tune of 8,800, 8,400. Today, it has come close to 7,700. So the numbers are coming down in Mumbai especially. And we may say that this could be, if this continues and this is having a pattern, then this would be attributed to the effect because of the lockdown, because of the weekend lockdown and the night curfew that is happening in Maharashtra, in Mumbai especially. Apart from this, we are also seeing, the Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar, he held a meeting yesterday and he pointed out that how, since the shops were given the permission to remain open all day, people were crowding outside these shops, and this led to higher chances of contraction. So now the shops, the Kirana shops would remain open only from the morning 7 a.m. till 11 a.m. and people who want to purchase their daily requirements can go at this particular time and do their purchases.
Okay, also looking at the 4-hour restrictions that's been put in place, especially when it comes to grocery timings, is that a cause of concern, or do you feel people adhering to it? And, the police, they are not under pressure to, ask people to fall in line, especially when it comes to following these guidelines, not only the people, but also the shopkeepers.
Well, it will start from today, and we will have to see how the shopkeepers, shop owners, they themselves ask people to follow the social distancing norms, because in the first wave, we did see that the shop owners had themselves, they had drawn those boxes and 2 meters apart. These boxes were made by the shop owners themselves, and they had asked the people, the customers, to follow these norms compulsorily, and if they have a mask only, then they can come to their shops to do all the necessary requirements, shopping. But now we have to see how the people would be reacting to this, given the fact that earlier they were seeing the whole day the shops were open, they could go down anytime they want, but now it will be restricted. They will have to make their weekly list or a list in like 2 days, 3 days, and then go and do the shopping at one time rather than going every single time they could want. And this would definitely, we are hoping that the numbers in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, would come down, because this was another major reason why the lockdown didn't seem to happen effectively, because people were loitering around without any reason. If their shopping is done, or after that also they were talking, chit-chatting with their friends. So this will at least curtail their roaming without the reason near these shops, kirana shops, and this will this will urge them to stay at their homes, because the shops are not open. So what will they do by going down?
Okay, Maharashtra, when you look at the death toll from the western state, 60,824, that's the number that we're looking at when it comes to death. But you made a mention about Mumbai there on on a downward trend, especially when it comes to numbers of positive COVID cases. So which are the areas that are cause of concern now, other than Mumbai, especially in the state of Maharashtra?
Well, Pune always stood at the #1 spot with the number of cases, with the number of deaths every time. And with that, we also saw areas like the other smaller areas which had seen a higher number of cases even before Pune, Mumbai had started. Those areas were Vidarbha, Yavatmal, Amravati. These areas had recorded major number of cases, and that is why it was a cause of concern, because authorities thought that this may be another strain of the virus. And lately also we've seen that there's after the tests that have happened, the strain has been sent for checking what strain is it, has it mutated itself, or it's some different variety of strain. So that we will get to know. Apart from that, the areas like we've already mentioned, Pune, so Thane, Navi Mumbai, these areas are the ones that are requiring, that are registering the maximum number of cases. Mumbai was also one of them, but we are hoping that this number, that the downward trend continues to happen, and we also hope that the downward trend continues to happen in the rest of Maharashtra, so that the number that we are registering, rather contributing to the national's daily number, that should really get very low, and we should be one of those states that register and record the lowest number of cases in the daily count.
Well, let's all hope for that, and thank you and appreciate you joining us this morning on News on the Hour, giving us an update there from the western state of Maharashtra. Well, moving forward, coming back to the national capital, amid unprecedented rise in corona cases across the country in the last 1 month, some states have brought back restrictions to break the case of resurgence. After Rajasthan announcing a stringent lockdown, 6-day lockdown has been imposed in the national capital Delhi since 10 p.m. on Monday night. The enforcement was made by the Chief Minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, terming it necessary to prevent a bigger crisis. The state government is also firming up health infrastructure in view of the sudden spike in numbers, with additional beds for COVID patients being set up in COVID hospitals to meet the demands. The 6-day lockdown ends on Monday, that's 26th of April at 5 a.m. Meanwhile, Delhi Metro will ply during the morning hours from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and the evening from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's the peak hours across the network, with a frequency of a train every 30 minutes. Also, according to DMRC, during the rest of the time, frequency of trains would be every 1 hour or 60 minutes. Also, services during lockdown period can be availed only by the exempted category of people on the production of a valid identity card. Well, Kerala will impose night curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. from today. The decision was taken at the core committee meeting called by the Chief Secretary on Monday. Public transport and goods movement will be exempted from curfew. Trishur Puram, the festival at the Trishur Vadakunta temple, will be conducted without public participation, with rituals performed by organizers as per tradition. Trishur Puram, which used to witness lakhs of devotees reaching the Panchavadya and elephants processions, were also cancelled last year as well. The core committee also decided to ban any sort of private tuitions involving physical classes. At the same time, State Education Department has decided to go ahead with the scheduled Class 10 and Class 12 exams, strictly adhering to COVID protocols. Well, BJP has decided that it will not conduct big rallies in West Bengal. Only small public meetings having not more than 500 people, that too in open space, will be conducted. Thus, no more than 500 people each will be allowed into Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other BJP campaigners' remaining poll rallies in West Bengal. Party President JP Nadda said that the decision has been taken in view of the COVID surge in the country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will now visit Bengal on Friday, that's April 23rd, and address 4 rallies in Malda, Mushirabad, Birbhum and South Kolkata. The original plan was to have these 4 rallies spread over 2 days on April 21st and April 24th. BJP functionaries said that all rallies would follow COVID prevention guidelines. Well, in a big relief, ICSE has cancelled the Class 10 board examinations in the wake of COVID-19 situation. The status of exams for Class 12 remain the same as per the previous order, as per which Class 12 exams will be conducted in an offline mode at a later date. In a letter, Council for the Indian School Certification Examinations, the decision has been taken considering the safety and well-being of the students and teaching faculty, which remain the top priority. So the big news is that ICSE cancelling its Class 10 examinations in wake of the COVID-19 situation, just like the CBSE did last week. Well, we are heading for a short commercial break. Lots more lined up from the world of business and sports on the other side. Stay tuned.
Kitchen waste, green waste, dried leaves from the garden, which are a source of carbon.
The money we received from the government added to our savings all went into the rice mill. I was into athletics before going in for judo, which really attracted me. It is a wonderful sport for girls and very beneficial.
A quick look at the day's top news. 100 big stories from across the country and the world in just 30 minutes. Watch Express News Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back to News on the Hour. Now taking a look at international stories. US President Joe Biden on Monday declared that every American age 16 is eligible to get a COVID-19 vaccine. The announcement comes weeks after President Biden wrote on Twitter that by April 19th, every adult will be eligible to be vaccinated on April 7th. At least a dozen states opened eligibility to anyone 16 and older on Monday alone, while New Jersey and Oregon announced late last week that all residents 16 and older will become eligible to be vaccinated on April 19th. The president had earlier announced that 90% of the adults would be eligible for one of the 3 approved COVID-19 vaccines by April 19th, in addition to having a vaccination site within 5 miles of their home. In a video message, US President Biden said that COVID-19 vaccines are free, safe, and it's how we are going to bring this pandemic to an end.
Well, it's your turn now. Starting tomorrow, all adults are eligible to get their shot. It's free, it's convenient, and it's the most important thing you can do to protect yourself from COVID-19, including the new variants we're seeing, to protect your loved ones, to help our economy recover, and to help get things back to normal. Look, we're making tremendous progress, but we're still in the race against this virus, and we need to vaccinate tens of millions more Americans.
Well, Portugal reopened its shopping malls, cinemas, high schools, universities and indoor areas of restaurants, cautiously easing COVID restrictions. Cafe owners took a sigh of relief as the conditions have begun to normalize and businesses are set to reopen. Lisbon's Amorias Mall, which has more than 200 stores, and its director Fernando Oliveiro said that the impact of restrictions on businesses has been brutal. With a population of just over 10 million, Portugal has suffered the pandemic with 831,221 cases and over 16,946 deaths. No crisis in recent history has hit the country's tourism-dependent economy as hard, with GDP shrinking 7.6% last year, its biggest annual slump since 1936. The economic recovery doesn't only depend on the vaccination rollout, which has so far been slow, but also on the return of tourists, especially from one of the country's biggest foreign markets, Britain. Well, some Swiss restaurants and bars reopened on Monday for outdoor customers on terraces in the latest cautious easing of pandemic restrictions in the Alpine country, while others opted to stay closed, saying it wasn't worth it. Outdoor events are also now allowed with up to 100 visitors and up to 50 audience members being permitted at indoor venues such as cinemas, theaters and concert halls. In downtown Geneva, locals were enjoying food and drinks on a chilly spring morning after last week's decision by the Swiss federal government. Bars and restaurants have been closed since November in the country. The Palexpo Center, host to one of the biggest conferences and events in Geneva, opened its doors as a vaccination center on Monday. The center has the capacity to vaccinate 2,000 people in a day. The figure is expected to rise to 3,000 and 4,000 vaccinations per day soon. Switzerland has expanded its capacity to inoculate people against COVID-19 by opening mass vaccination centers like the Palexpo and in other cities such as Lausanne. In Lausanne, the largest center in the canton of Vaud opened, which aims to vaccinate at least 14,000 people in a week. The number of cases have continued to steadily rise in the Alpine country over the last few weeks. It increased by at least 4,905 since the weekend. While Iranians face increasing regulations as the country battles a surge in coronavirus cases, with the daily death toll climbing over 400 for the first time in months on Sunday. Iran recorded over 398 deaths on Monday, raising the overall toll to 67,130 deaths. As a new wave of coronavirus cases spread across the Middle East hardest hit country, a feeling of concern grows among many Iranians, some of whom worry that the authorities have failed to take sufficient action to curb the epidemic. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani on Monday expressed concern as the latest surge in COVID-19 cases was the most severe that the country has experienced. But he also added that he hoped to have a domestically developed vaccine ready by summer. Businesses, schools, theaters, sports facilities and other public institutions have been forced to shut shop, and gatherings are banned during the fasting holy month of Ramadan. On to some other international news now. India's ambassador to China, Vikram Misri, has said that the tendency to sweep the situation at border under the carpet and characterize it as just a minor issue and a matter of perspective is inadvisable, as it can only take the two countries further away from a sustained solution to the present difficulties and deeper into an unfulfilling stalemate. Speaking at an online event, he said both India and China agree that they should stick to the consensus between the top leaders of the two countries. However, he pointed out that equally significant consensus has been reached between the two leaders in the past as well on the importance of maintaining peace and tranquility, and it is important to stick to that consensus as well. He further said that the impact on public opinion has been particularly strong due to the violation of peace and tranquility at the LAC. He also reminded that in every domain, multilateral, plurilateral or bilateral, words need to be backed up by actions. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lost an important vote on Monday over who gets to join a powerful committee in parliament, dealing him a setback as he tries to form a new government following an inconclusive election. Netanyahu has about 2 more weeks to try and bring together a ruling coalition. Defeat in the vote indicated the veteran leader still has some way to go to secure a majority in the 120-seat Knesset. The vote was set to decide who will join the Arrangements Committee, which, in the absence of a new government, controls the legislative agenda. President Reuven Rivlin on April 6th asked Netanyahu to form a government and gave him 28 days to do so. If unsuccessful, Netanyahu can ask Rivlin for a 2-week extension before the president taps another candidate or asks the parliament to nominate one. Minneapolis and other U.S. cities were ramping up security measures on Monday, grinding for a possible protest after the jury delivered a verdict in the trial of former police officer Derek Chauvin, charged with murdering George Floyd by kneeling on his neck. Citing threat of civil unrest, the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, declared a preemptive state of emergency in the metropolitan area and requested security assistance from other states. Local officers were stretched, having policed a week of protest over the fatal police shooting of a black man in the Minneapolis suburb and bracing for more protest over the trial verdict. As jury began celebrating the charges of third and second degree murder and second degree manslaughter against Chauvin, the state officials of Minneapolis have heightened the security precautions, griding the courthouse tower with barbed wire and armed officers from the National Guard. A few miles from the courtroom, nightly protests have flared in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, over the police shooting of a 20-year-old black man, Daunte Wright, after a routine traffic stop on April 11th. Well, in the meantime, George Floyd's family members and civil rights leaders prayed outside the courthouse where jurors heard the closing arguments in the murder trial of the former policeman Derek Chauvin. Protesters have told the jury that they are weighing the guilty on only one man, but their verdict will nonetheless be widely seen as a reckoning in the way the United States police treat black people. Meanwhile, Chauvin's lawyers argued that he correctly followed the training he received over 19 years with the police department, which fired him the day after Floyd's arrest and sought to raise doubts about the cause of Floyd's death. The Kremlin on Monday said it does not accept what it called proactive calls for nationwide protest in support of jailed opposition politician Alexei Navalny, whose health was gravely deteriorated while on hunger strike in prison. In a press conference, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said unauthorized rallies in support of Navalny would be considered illegal by the authorities. This comes as Navalny's allies have announced plans for what they hope will be the largest protest in modern Russian history on Wednesday. Navalny started refusing food on March 31st in protest of what he said was a refusal of prison authorities to provide him with adequate medical care for acute leg and back pain. The United States has warned Russia it will pay a price if he dies in jail from his hunger strike. Well, coming out as a warning, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said what happens to Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny in Russia's custody is the responsibility of the Russian government and the world will hold them accountable. Psaki said in the interim, the objective is continuing to push for his release and reiterate our view that he must be treated humanly.
We continue to reiterate our view that that what happens to Mr. Navalny in the custody of the Russian government is the responsibility of the Russian government and that they will be held accountable by the international community. In the interim, our objective is, of course, continuing to call for, push for his release and reiterate our view that he must be treated humanely.
Well, moving to sports stories, amid disturbance in the footballing world following the announcement of the Super League by 12 teams on Monday, UEFA has approved the new format for club competitions. The new Champions League format is due to start in the 2024 season and will run at least till the 2033 season. The new format will see 36 clubs qualifying for an expanded first phase where all clubs will play against 10 opponents of varying strengths. This will result in a league table with the top 8 qualifying for the knockout phase and the next 16 going into a playoff for the remaining 8 slots. The format has been criticized by fan groups, not least because 2 of the additional 4 slots will be allotted on the basis of past performance to the clubs with the highest UEFA coefficient that did not qualify for the Champions League automatically but did qualify for another European competition. On to IPL, the spin duo of Ravindra Jadeja and Moeen Ali tormented the Rajasthan batting lineup to ensure a second consecutive win for Chennai in the IPL on Monday night. Cameos from Faf du Plessis, Dwayne Bravo, Ambaiti Rayudu and Moeen Ali helps Chennai post 188 for 9 after being put into bat. Rajasthan made a promising start in the run chase courtesy Jose Butler, but the batsmen succumbed to the spinners on the Wankhede wicket, which offered more turn than earlier games. Chennai won the game comfortably by 45 runs after Rajasthan were restricted for 143 for 9. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of News on the Hour. It's time for me to say goodbye. But remember, the fight against COVID-19 continues. You know, if you are 45 and above, please register yourself. Still continue to register yourself for the vaccination drive. Remember, the vaccination drive will now be open for all above 18 from the 1st of May. But all those not registered, please go and register yourself for the vaccination drive. For those who have not got vaccinated, please continue to follow the 3 simple steps of SMS, sanitize yourself, mask yourself, and maintaining social distancing. Please follow it. The fight against COVID-19 continues. It's not about you and me. It's about humanity at large. Let's all brace together for this big fight. That's it in this edition of News on the Hour. We are going to be back same time, same channel. Until then, goodbye. Take care.